everybody. I'm Xuerui, a PhD student from Tianjin Medical University. It's my honor to have this chance to make a presentation about the influence of lifespan cognitive review indicator on cognitive trajectories in different domains. Role of brain pathologies. I will talk from the following five respects. Now, let's begin. With population aging, cognitive impairment and dementia are common among older adults, but many people may tolerate considerable dementia-related brain pathology without expressing the clinic syndrome of dementia. Thus, the cognitive reserve (CR) hypothesis has been proposed as a compensatory mechanism to better cope with age-related brain damage by promoting more flexible usage of cognitive processes. Thus far, numerous studies have addressed the relationship between individual CR-related factors and cognitive function in different domains, but with inconsistent findings. And emerging evidence has suggested that CR is a dynamic construct and influenced by different exposures across the life course and one reserve enhancing factor during a certain period alone could not fully explain the accumulation of cognitive activities over the life course. Furthermore, wider CR directly counteracts the effect of brain pathologies or represents other pathways to delay cognitive impairment is controversial. Thus, to what extent is lifespan CR associated with cognitive decline, and what are the underlying pathological mechanisms linking CR to cognitive function needs to be explored. In the present study, we aim to examine the associations of lifespan CR with global and domain-specific cognitive function changes over time, and to explore whether such associations are varied by brain pathologies. The study population in the current study is from the Rush Memory and Aging Project, which is an ongoing prospective cohort study on aging and dementia. From 1997 till 2019, a total of 2,155 participants were recruited and annually followed up for a max of 21 years. After excluding 458 participants, 1,697 dementia-free participants remained for follow-up cognitive function, of whom 648 underwent autopsies. The explorer is lifespan CR, and the CR-related factors include education, early life, middle life, and later life cognitive activities, and later life social activity and social network. These factors were collected through personal interviews and study entry. Years of education were acquired based on the number of years of regular school reported. Cognitive activities across the life course were assessed using a 37-atom questionnaire of the frequency of participating in cognitively stimulating activities in the corresponding periods. These activities include reading books, visiting a library, writing letters, and so on. Early life includes childhood and young adulthood. Midlife refers aged about 40 years. Later life means within the year before study enrollment. Item scores in corresponding periods were averaged to yield cognitive activity measures. Higher scores indicate more participating in cognitive activities. Later life social activity was assessed with a six-item questionnaire describing how often participants engaged in common types of activities during the past year, such as going to restaurants, going on day or overnight trips, doing unpaid community or volunteer work, and so on. The item scores were averaged to generate the composite measure of social activity, and higher scores indicated more involvement in social activity. Later life social network was quantified by standard questions regarding the number of children, family, and friends that each participant had and how often they interacts with them. This figure shows the standardized estimates of lifespan CR from the structural equation model. In the initial analysis of latent variables, the above-mentioned factors were all included in the structural equation. However, the factor loading of social network was small, and the fitting degree of the equation was unsatisfactory. Therefore, later life social network was excluded from the equation. Finally, education, early life cognitive activity, midlife cognitive activity, late life cognitive activity, and later life social activity were used to generate the final CR indicator. The views indicate the loadings of the five factors to CR. The CR score ranged from -8 to 5.7, with a higher score indicating a greater level of CR. And CR was used as both a continuous and categorical variable in the data analysis. Regarding the assessment of cognitive function as follows. A total of 19 tests were used to assess five cognitive domains, including episodic memory, semantic memory, working memory, visual spatial ability, and perceptual speed. All the raw scores of the tests were individually converted to this score, which were further averaged to yield a global cognitive function, with higher scores indicating better cognitive function. Brain pathologies were evaluated in deceased participants, including global Alzheimer's disease pathology burden, chronic infects, cerebral vascular disease pathology, Lewy bodies, and typical hippocampal sclerosis. Age, sex, body mass index, smoking, alcohol consumption, physical activity, hypertension, diabetes, heart disease, stroke, and ApoE4 were considered as potential confounders. Linear mixed effect model and logistic regression were used in statistical analysis. Now, let's talk results. Characteristics of study population are as follows. Compared to lowest CR group, participants with the highest CR were more likely to have alcohol consumption, physical activity, better global and failed domain-specific cognitive function, but less likely to have diabetes. There were no significant differences in terms of other variables among three groups. And this result shows the relationship between lifespan CR and cognitive domains. After multi-adjusted, when the lifespan CR was used as a continuous variable, a higher score was associated with a slower rate of decline in global cognition, episodic memory, semantic memory, working memory, and perceptual speed over time. Compared to participants with the lowest lifespan CR, those with the highest CR had a slower decline in global cognition, episodic memory, and working memory over the follow-up. Then we examined the relationship between lifespan CR and brain pathology and found that compared to the lowest CR group, the highest group was only related to a lower burden of global AD pathologies and growth effects, but not related to other brain pathologies, suggesting that CR might exert a slight neuroprotective effect in cognitively normal older adults. After further adjusted global AD pathology and growth effects, the association between the highest CR and slower decline in global cognitive function, episodic memory, working memory, and visual spatial ability remained significant. We also performed the stratified analysis by the level of brain pathologies. The effect of the highest CR on a slower decline in global cognitive function still remains significant in participants with high AD pathology or growth effects. Thus, this result also supports the CR compensatory hypothesis. A notable strength of our study is the community-based prospective cohort with a relatively large sample size and long-term follow-up. Furthermore, the use of latent variable could capture CR-related factors from different periods over the life course. Nevertheless, some limitations of our study should be pointed out. First, the participants were volunteers with a mean age of about 79 years at study entry. Thus, caution is required when generalizing our findings, especially the results regarding brain pathology to the younger population. Second, the CR-related factors were ascertained through retrospective self-reported information, which might lead to some recall biases. Furthermore, information on occupation was not available and thus could not be considered in CR indicator. Finally, the brains of the participants were obtained and autopsied when the participants were deceased, and the exact time brain pathology occurred was unknown. In conclusion, we found that high lifespans are predicted preserved cognitive functioning in global cognition, episodic memory, and working memory, and the association of high lifespan CR with a slower decline in cognitive function remained significant in the presence of high AD pathology or growth effects. Finally, thanks to all collaborators, all the MAP staff, and the participants. Thank you for your attention.